Welcome to this evening's session. My name is Davesh, Creative Yoga. So to begin with, we'll just have a moment to simply arrive. So finding a comfortable seat, just lengthen the spine, grow tall. Just roll the shoulders back and down, tucking the chin in slightly, lifting the crown of the head towards the ceiling. And then just bringing your awareness to the breath, long, slow, deep breathing. Body still and comfortable. And slow the breath down as much as possible. Maybe focusing on the exhale, as the exhale is all about relaxation. The inhale is all about energy, and the exhale is about relaxation. So just enjoy a few breaths here, allowing the mind to become present. A yogic mindset is one that is simply an observer. Observing our breath, observing the comfort of the body, body is still and comfortable, breath is rhythmic, and the mind is filled with a sense of peace and appreciation. So we'll start with our first poem, as the theme for this week is ascending our level of being, or ascending our stage. So this first poem is called Stage of Ascent. So Namisha is just going to be putting up the artwork. The Stage of Ascent. Om Shanti. Travelling through time, never knowing any crime, to descend is natural law. When the needs are more and more, we may try and disrupt, but all things corrupt. From angels full of light, to humans full of fright. Wings once fly with zeal, but the real deal is one day they get clipped, maybe even ripped. However, no worries. When he comes, there is no hurry. The only mind that always stays kind. The only intellect that remains perfect. The only personality that's complete purity. The uncorruptible one. Says, sweetest children, you fall into vice by chasing dice, even lice turning as cold as ice. I free you from your hurry, there is no need to worry. Learn to move out the glass case, this transforms your face. Don't turn away from my embrace, or you'll end up in jail, in another tale. Be that flying kite, keep the sight right. Surrender to the flame, then there will be no blame. Be that sparkling star from my land, far, far. This will make you a master creator. There's no need for waiters or big craters. That will make you come later. I come to heal and reawaken the wheel. Remember this light as it fills you with might, takes you from your descent and sends you into the stage of ascent. Om Shanti. So that is the stage of ascent. So I'll just very quickly explain this artwork or this image before it comes down. As you can see, there's a ladder down one side. It's a downward spiraling ladder that goes down, and then on the other side there is when we surrender, when we let go, when we go into stillness, when we go into silence, we ascend. So it's a journey. Life is a journey of ascending and descending, descending and ascending. So it's all a journey going up and down the ladder, or ascending with our wings, and then coming down the ladder, ascending and descending. That's roughly what the image is about. So I'll spend some time in our wisdom sharing just to and explain what these natural laws are and what makes us ascend, what makes us descend. Okay, so we can take the image down there. Okay, so the wisdom behind this poem, basically, just a quick recap from the past. We are beings of light, ethereal, souls beyond the physical costume of the body. The body is almost like a car. The soul, like this image above us, is a point. So when we come from this perspective of seeing ourselves as an ethereal being, a point of light that is within the body, it's playing a part through the body. The body itself can go up and down through its health issues and whatever that comes about, but I can be constant. The body changes, the body gets old, whereas I, the spiritual being, the point of light, can identify with my younger self. I am constant. There is memory, there is an intellect, and then there is mind. So these three faculties make up the spiritual being, the soul. And then the next aspect we talked about is actually making a connection with the divine. And there is a whole, this image again is a representation of the divine. It's a representation of the soul as well as the divine. And we introduced the whole other world. So there's a world, a physical world, which is time and space, the world that we all know. And actually the soul itself comes from a whole separate world. And this is a world of light, a world of stillness, backstage, where there is no experience. Experience is just a space of rest. So for today's session, we'll call the physical world a world of motion, because there's always a lot of activity, there's a lot of movement, and there's motion that goes on. Even when we're sitting still, time is ticking on. So we'll call the physical world our world of motion. Whereas the soul world, or this world beyond, we'll call it our world of stillness, as it is a place of actually stillness. It's a place of rest. There is no movement, there is no change. So the world of motion has natural laws that we all abide by. We can try to not abide by them, but it's a natural law, so we all abide by them. It takes a lot of energy to try and escape them. Let's say, so one natural law we have is gravity. In order to escape gravity, a lot of energy has to be applied in order to escape gravity. So in the same way, there are other laws in effect in this world of motion. So, and we all have to abide by these laws. So the first law is known as the law of change. Nothing can ever stay the same. We're always in a change, in a state of change, whether we're ascending or we're descending. Let's take a business, a lifetime of a business. It's either growing every year, the books or the financials are always going to be different. They're never exactly the same. The turnover is always going to be different. So it's either going to be higher or it's going to be lower. It's never exactly the same. Our spiritual growth and degrade or decreases is similar like that. We're always in a state of change, whether we ascend or we descend, we develop or we degrade. So a business would have more of a turnover and become more successful, or less of a turnover and become less so. So in the same way, spiritual growth and decrease does the same in this physical world. The next natural law is a really interesting one. It's known as the law of entropy. Entropy simply means everything that is new becomes old. Everything that is once ordered becomes disordered, or there is disorder that comes about. A best way to look at this is like a battery. if you put a battery into appliance, now you know all our mobile phones these days have batteries in them, and they constantly have to be charged once a day so the battery doesn't go flat. In the same way, soul can be seen like a battery that has to be charged, and if it's not charged, it degrades. So if a battery is not in the appliance, does it degrade? No. Well, it might degrade a little bit, but physically, if the battery is not in an appliance, the battery's level will stay fairly charged, or if your phone is switched off, the battery will stay charged. But the moment the, the energy of the battery is being used in the appliance, the battery degrades. It's seen the same as a soul. Once the soul is embodied, takes on a physical costume and plays a part through a body, this is where the law of entropy comes into effect. The soul's energy naturally degrades, so to descend is natural law. By coming down this ladder from that image, the ladder coming down, it's the natural law. Everything that's new will become old. This is the law of entropy. So these two laws, law of change and the law of entropy, are constantly in effect in the world of motion, which is the physical world. However, the world of silence, or the world of stillness, which is this spiritual world that's not affected by the laws of time, not affected by the laws of space, or these natural laws. And there's one being that's known as the uncorruptible one. As all my poems have a representation, or I love to bring God or the divine into my poetry, because there's one being that is different, that's ever pure, ever on that high stage, that does not degrade or does not come down. And this is why this being is known as the imageless one, because the moment the soul is embodied, it's a very gradual process where the law of entropy is in effect, where the soul's energy is being dissipated into motion, into the physical. So naturally the soul will degrade. And this is the main difference between ourselves and the divine. If the divine were to take a physical body and be embodied too, his energy too will degrade. And as his energy degrades, it'll be just the same as ourselves. So this is why this divine being is known as the imageless one. So his representation is this image behind me, but it's also our representation. But the main difference is we become embodied and play a part in this world of motion. Whereas the divine has a different role. He stays in reserve. That's why his battery never discharges. He's not actually a battery. He's actually the generator, the battery charger. So this is another way of connecting, or the benefit of connecting to this world of stillness above and beyond in our meditation. Because what we're connecting to is the source. And when we connect to this source, we charge our battery. And by charging our battery, this is how we maintain ourselves to be in an ascending stage. And this happens simply by remembrance. Meditation is one thing, but that can seem very formal. Remembrance, or remembering this divine being, whether you want to call him God or divinity or a benevolent force that's above and beyond us, however we wish to see this being. The moment we connect to this being, we charge the battery of the soul, which helps the soul to stay in its natural ascending stage. It takes us into a stage of ascent, or raises our level of being. But it is a constant practice, because the world of motion, if we lose sight of this world of stillness, I get caught up in the world of motion. The battery with soul discharges in many different directions, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a possession, whether it's an achievement, whether it's roles and responsibilities that I have to fulfill. The battery is discharging. So in order to keep the battery charged, I have to connect upwards. I have to connect to my stillness, to the world of stillness, because stability comes from stillness. If I get caught up in the motion of my life, it can become an emotional roller coaster, going up and down and in and out in all sorts of places. I get influenced by the situations in my life. And if that's the case, the battery is being discharged. And it's natural, it happens because we are on a space where energy is being used. There's a leakage, maybe. So actually learning to connect our love upwards, learning to connect towards the divine. Remembrance simply is meditation with love. That's what remembrance is. Because when you want to remember somebody, if there's something that you really love, you remember them. You don't meditate on them. So it's this experience of having a loving remembrance with the divine. That's what charges the battery of the soul. Believe it or not, everybody actually naturally does this. When the body gets tired, we sleep, we rest to recharge the body. But in that time of sleep, the mind actually goes through a cycle itself of light sleep to a point of deep sleep, and then comes back to light sleep again. It's known as a REM cycle. But when it gets to that moment of deep sleep, what happens in the mind? Our brain waves change. Now there's 4 different types of brain waves. There's alpha, which is alpha, beta, theta, and delta. So the delta waves are the most relaxation waves. Most of them are sort of associated with being in an unconscious state. And when we're in an unconscious state, that's what's sort of seen as that moment of recharging of the battery, or the physical energy of the body as well. But it's a complete moment of stillness and silence for this to happen. So it's associated with unconsciousness. However, with meditation, the question I'm asking, is it possible to reach this stage in our mind of delta waves while still being conscious? Is it possible, while still being conscious, to allow our mind to reach that sort of stage? The other waves, theta waves are related to being in a zone. Like when you're driving and you've gone through like 5 miles, but your driving skills are so accurate that they just fly by. Or things, you've practiced something for such a long time that you can perform it unconsciously without you having to think about it too much. So when you're learning to drive, initially there's so much thought going on. I need to change gear here, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do that. But we get to a point where we can do everything second nature. So that's theta waves. When we're consciously doing things, that is beta waves. And when we're learning or asking questions, then we're in alpha, conscious. So the question is, in theta and delta waves, here we're actually also connecting to our own creativity. But this happens when we go into an experience with yoga. Two other points I wish to mention in terms of if we maintain this level of silence while we are here. On the world of motion, everything changes. Everything. And if my support isn't something that's going to change, let's say a relationship, when it changes, or we are at the mercy of the change. As you know, everything changes. Nothing ever stays the same. So if our support is something in the world of motion and it changes, we shake. So our support, we want to try and make it upwards to this world of silence. When that's our support, then we maintain a level of stability. And when whatever changes happen in our lives, we can see it as one of two things. We can see it as an opportunity to be creative, to reinvent ourselves and change with the current time. Or we can see it as a threat and become stuck in the past of how things used to be. If we see it as a threat, we get stuck and then there's stress. However, if we spend time in silence, connecting to our own creativity, what happens then is we're able to move and change with the current time in the world of motion. Because we see things as opportunities to change rather than threatening my current support. That's the other benefit of making this connection upwards to the world of stillness. Stillness recharges the battery. It takes us into a stage of ascent. It also allows us to be creative and move and reinvent ourselves to the current time. Because there is a lot of upheaval going on, but only if we are stable ourselves can we be creative and change. If we're stuck in the past, then we are no longer creative. Okay, so that was the wisdom for that particular poem. So I would like to do a little breathing exercise now. This breathing exercise is all about taking our minds into that relaxed state of mind to become still here. Because when we're still here, then we can make that connection to the world of stillness. Then we can also, the mind becomes stable. It's a silent light. And if the mind becomes stable through stillness, then creative energy flows. So it's a breathing exercise this time around, because the mind can be quite tricky to control. So breathing exercise, our breath is very much linked with our mind. So breathing exercise, and then we'll do a meditation afterwards. But once again, finding a comfortable seat, lengthen the spine, roll the shoulders back and down, energy channels open. With our right hand, what we're going to do is bring our right hand up, thumb comes in, and the two smaller fingers come into the body, come into the palm. And then these two fingers just come through the third eye point. With the other hand, if you wish, you can make chin mudra, so the index finger and the thumb connect, so maybe that's like a point of focus, and then just rest the back of the palm onto the knee. Lengthen the spine. So the left nostril is all about relaxation, so we're going to connect the thumb to the right nostril. Firstly exhale completely. Thumb goes to right nostril, and we're just going to breathe in. Inhaling. And then we're going to switch the fingers using the ring finger to block off the left nostril, and then exhaling. We're going to lengthen, slow, and deepen the breath as much as possible. Switching the finger to the thumb on the right nostril, inhaling. And then switching the finger to the left, the ring finger to the left nostril, exhaling. So I'll count this time around. So inhaling, switching the finger and inhaling for a count of 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Switching the finger and exhaling for a count of 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Switching, inhaling 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Switching and exhaling 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now if that's a bit long, what we're going to do, a few more by yourself, but do it as slow as you possibly can. and gently. There's no need to force the breath. So in your own time, 3 more cycles. Inhaling. Switch and exhale. Switch and inhale. So I'm sort of explaining my breath, but you can do it at your own pace. Switch and exhale. Switch and inhale. Switch and exhale. Releasing the arms down to the knees, just coming back to your normal breath. Taking a few breaths here. Just explaining what's happening here with our breath. The left side is sort of linked with creativity. It's also linked with a relaxing mind. The right side is linked with energy. Also the right side, when we exhale through the right side, exhaling is all about bringing relaxation, bringing stillness. So just observe what's going on in the mind. Maybe it's still and silent. The body still, breath is rhythmic. I'll do a quick meditation here. I'll just do a quick commentary. So from our stillness, bringing the awareness inwards. And maybe just bringing the awareness to the third eye point, the seat of the soul within the body. You may keep your eyes open or close them, it's your choice. And from here, all I'm going to do is take my awareness upwards to a whole world of stillness, off the physical stage of activity. From motion, I'm going into stillness. And in this world of stillness, bathed by a gentle light, a gentle glow, like being in front of the sun. I make a connection to the divine. And I simply allow the rays of divinity to come over the soul, charging the battery of the soul. As the soul's battery is being charged, I simply ascend, or come into my own ascending stage. Where the world of motion, the physical world of space and time, is very small. I am aware of the bigger picture of reality, the real world, the world of stillness. And it's through this connection upwards that I connect to my own creativity, a space of pure potential, which allows me to ebb and flow with the current times. For a few moments, I take my mind into the most fullest moments I can, simply remembering this fatherly divine light, as the divine is the father of the soul, and also the mother of the soul, protecting and nourishing the soul. Shanti. Maybe just bring the awareness back to the body, gently, feeling the fingers and the toes. So there is a real benefit of stability when I make this awareness to, when I make this gentle effort to just connect upwards. Okay, second poem. The second poem is called Tying the Knot. Tying the knot is it's a phrase that's used for, as image. No, she just puts up the artwork. It's used for when people are getting married or making a commitment. There's many different times when this phrase is being used of tying the knot. In an Indian marriage, just think about it. What's happened is there's a knot that's been tied between the garments of the bride and the groom, and they walk around a fire, which sort of represents a commitment, a connectivity. Wherever I go, you will follow, or wherever you go, I will follow. That's the image. So this poem is called Tying the Knot. Om Shanti. Where you tie the thread, that's where your heart and head are led. Living between two ages, one only a cage, the other full of wonderful mages. Take care that the thread is tied to a world of light. If tied to a cage, there will be rage. This opens new pages of catchment in the story of attachment. Tie the thread of wife to the bringer of life. There is no need to strife. Have this courage. From a desperate forage to an inner forge, to be with the highest on high mage. Freezes from the cage, protects us and removes any rage. Changes iron to gold so it's easier to mould. So start to hold this thread of the heart and the head with the one of only love that lives up above. Treading lightly with the feet, this keeps the stage complete. Keep the company of the one that takes us into the sun. Shows the way from night into day, gives the injection that cures all rejection. Into the sacrificial fire, removes all needs and desire. Finally, takes us back home, transformed, clear as chrome. Tie this knot, you will never rot. Shanti. Just explaining this image very quickly. This image is shown as there's a place of iron, an age of iron, and a place of golden, an age of golden. And there's an area in between where the iron meets the golden. And this image of the yin-yang image, and it can represent many different things, but in this particular image it represents a transformation, a change, an ascending that's going on. As you know, this play is all about ascending and descending, and it's natural to descend, but also we have to make a conscious effort to ascend our level as well. So one side can be tied as a knot. So if our supports are in this world of motion, it can be colourful and dear, and we see it as a wonderful thing, but it could also be a bondage, a cage, and it stops us from being free in our lives. So that's one side. One age is of iron, a cage, a bondage. And the other side is an age of liberation, to live a life of liberation. And the two dots in this image of yin yang just represents the transformation from one stage of being to another stage of being. One is trapped in some form of attachment. One is free from attachment, unable to move and ebb and flow and be creative. And as you can see the top image, it's all about connecting upwards. And when we make this connection to divinity and upwards. So for me, in my artwork, this image at the top is a representation of divinity, of the divine, of a being that stays completely in that ascent, in that stage of ascent. That is completely pure, completely happy, completely blissful. And it's by making this connection to this one that we're able to ascend our stage as well. So there are a couple of recommendations, really. To be honest, to be able to maintain our stage of ascent, it takes practice, and it's practice makes perfect. The more we practice, the easier it is to live a life of liberation rather than a life of bondage. So there are some recommendations that I'm going to make now, and it's your choice whether you follow them or not, but it's like the homework to be able to live a life of liberation, to live a life that's free, rather than living a life that's caught up in a bondage. Yes, we still have to fulfill the responsibilities that we have, but they shouldn't have any control or power over us. And that means we're living a life of liberation by, instead of having our knots tied or our threads tied to the cages down here, we tie our supports and tying the knot upwards. And when we tie this knot upwards, we can let go of the knots that are down here. So the first recommendation, as you see in the world of motion, we're traveling. We're always traveling. Even if we've lived in the same house for 10 years, we're travelers, and we're not going to live there forever, right? If we feel like we're going to live there forever, then when it's time to change, we get insecure. So the first recommendation is to see ourselves in this world of motion as guests. When I came alone with nothing, and when I go alone with nothing. So in actual fact, everything in my life, all the possessions, the relationships, the achievements, even my own thoughts and feelings, are simply, we're trustees almost, we're entrusted with them, we're caretakers, even our bodies itself, we're caretakers of our own bodies. Oh, sorry, we can take the image down. So this first recommendation is all about having the awareness that we are guests. Nothing is permanent, because the natural law is the law of change. And if we get stuck onto something and it changes, we're at the mercy of the change. We're unable to be creative and move and flow and reinvent. The basis of this is when we see ourselves as guests. Best time for this awareness is first thing in the morning, when we wake up and arise and refreshen ourselves, maybe have a cup of tea and sit down, have some meditation or remembrance at this time in the morning and develop this awareness of being a guest within this body. I've incarnated to play the part of the day. And the reason why it's important to do this in the morning is because then we can sustain this awareness during the day. Because the first, whatever we do for the first few hours of the day sets us up for the rest of the day. So whenever we wake up, however early, or it doesn't have to be really early in the morning, because whenever we're up and awake, take some time to develop this awareness of being a guest. The second awareness to develop is actually spend some time during the day studying, even if it's just a little bit of reading, on something that helps us develop our own awareness of the soul. So whether there's spiritual teachers that are further along the path of spirituality, there are many books and self-help stuff out there. So there is many things that you can read, but spend some time to help activate the intellect, to grow the intellect. But then ask questions, make it personal to yourselves. That way, you're developing the practice for yourself. So to make a conscious shift, there are recommendations of those who fall back into previous habits. So it's important to make this shift. So spending time studying every day, even if it's just a little bit, a few lines, a page, of something that helps develop your own soul awareness. The next recommendation is to maintain this during our day. So having 5 or 10 moments of stillness and silence to let go and just check the traffic of thoughts that are happening up here. So maybe we get caught up into the gross situations of our life and we move into the lower level of awareness where we are caught up in the physical roles that we play. So take moments to step back, take moments to turn inwards. And if we find ourselves caught up to, hanging on to limited identities, make that internal correction. Just reminding ourselves during the day, having moments of silence and reminding ourselves. The next recommendation, so there's 5 recommendations altogether. So the first one is starting the day with the awareness of a guest and some yoga or meditation. The next awareness, have 5 or 10 moments of stillness during the day. Spend some time studying in the day, developing on our own soul awareness. Final 2 awarenesses, one of them is during the day, whenever we eat or whenever we stop to eat, take a moment to just appreciate even just having a meal, of how nature is sustaining us, is serving our best interests, or serving the interests of the body. Just be thankful for the fortunate position that we're in to be able to have a meal. So this awareness of being thankful allows us to be sustained, but also allows food to be digested better. And we're able to have this awareness. The awareness that we cook and eat in is the awareness that affects our mind and our mental state. So this awareness of cooking and eating in a meditative state actually serves the body, but also serves our mind and helps us to ascend to. This is the next recommendation. And the final recommendation is for the end of our day, as we're winding down for bed. It's simply, if during our day, if we're holding on to any baggage, or if anything's upset us or taken us out of our level of soul awareness, then it's just to hand it over to the divine, to be as light and as easy as a child. Because if we go to sleep with the baggage, we wake up with the baggage, and our sleep isn't as well. We ain't able to go to those deeper levels of delta waves in our sleep, and we wake up feeling tired. So it's important to be able to consciously let go, rather than falling asleep watching inactivity. Consciously go to sleep saying, I'm putting the body to rest. The body is being put to rest. To let go of baggage, to understand that we're growing and learning and changing every day. By putting ourselves at rest, we're able to have better sleep. And then that cycle of day and night continues again. So this is the cycle of an upward spiral, which is ascending. because the soul is being awaked within the body, and it's being able to ascend to this world of stillness. We can be in a downward spiral. A downward spiral that gets us caught up into the physical situations of our lives, into the relationships of our lives, into the possessions of our life. And then if they change, we're at the mercy of the change. So learning to make this connection upwards is our stage of ascent before resting, because we have good sleep that way. So 5 recommendations, briefly just mentioning each one again. Waking up with the awareness of being a guest. Spending some time every day studying to develop our soul awareness. Spending 5 or 10 moments during the day just to stop and check the traffic of thoughts in our mind. When I'm eating with a thankful nature, and also maybe in silence, mindfully tasting each taste of a meal. And finally, the final recommendation is at the end of the day, let go, rest. Put yourself at ease, hand over all baggages and burdens to the divine. So to support our spiritual growth, to support our ascending stage, it's good to practice these 5 recommendations, because we have to make lifestyle changes, really. Because sometimes our lifestyle supports the descent, or our lifestyle can support the ascent, the downward spiral into the world of motion, or the upward spiral into the world of stillness. Now, a Raj Yogi is one that lives in this world of stillness and plays the part, like an art, in this physical world. So in order to develop our spirituality, we have to go beyond physicality. And by doing that, we're able to maintain our ascending state. Practicing being up there doesn't mean we neglect playing a part down here, because we are embodied souls, we're embodied here. So actually taking care of the body is a responsibility that we have. So eating well, sleeping well, being active, it's a balance. It's an ascend as well as a descend. But the descent doesn't mean we're getting caught up. If we're getting caught up into the physical world, then we're descending further. And we're giving our spirituality or our power away to a situation. So yes, we definitely have to take care of our bodies. Yes, we definitely have to be active. For me personally, I practice Hatha Yoga, or the physical practice of yoga, which is a good way for me to stay healthy and make myself feel younger. Without actually, and it also supports the Raj Yoga as well. For me, they go hand in hand. So yoga, you can say as physical yoga, you can say as spiritual yoga. But for me, I would say they support each other. So yeah, in terms of that, definitely we have to fulfill our responsibilities and take care of things. But at the same time, those responsibilities should not have power over me. To love, but then at the same time to give space and be detached. But the place to attach ourselves, because it's a healthy support, because it's a space that doesn't change, is this space upwards, this world of stillness. Because it's this stillness that helps us to maintain our stability, helps us to be creative, and it helps us to develop. That's the stage of ascent. Because it all is a balancing act, really. It's a balancing act to live a life of balance, live a life of liberation. It's to learn to live beyond the physical world and live in the sky. It's like living in the sky. So practice during the day, making the world really small. Stepping out So there was a line in the poem saying, stepping out of the glass case. The glass case represents this physical costume. We'll spend the last 5 minutes practicing this ability to step out the vehicle, to step out of the glass case. And this, as the rhyme goes, this brings a smile to the face. So learn to step out the glass case of the body. So once again, taking a few long, slow, deep breaths, body still, breath rhythmic. So actually preparing the body for meditation is really important. Lengthen the spine, roll the shoulders back and down, round the head up towards the ceiling, tucking the chin in slightly. Body still and comfortable. Breath is rhythmic. And the mind is filled with a sense of peace and appreciation. I simply just create a thought to reach my world of stillness, to be in the presence of divinity. I create the thought, and I naturally arrive there. I turn inwards, and I step out the vehicle. I step out the glass case. And I connect upwards. Receiving a current of energy. Using this current of energy to charge the battery of the soul. The divine is always there, always giving, always nourishing the soul. We make the conscious effort to remember that I am a spiritual being within the body. And then make the connection upwards to the divine. A personal connection. Where I can stay carefree. Where I can stay light. And live a life of liberation. As this practice liberates me from the bondages of life. Just simply to make the physical world of motion small. And make the spiritual world of stillness my world, my home. My reality. And this allows us to live a life of liberation. This ascends our stage. Shanti. So thank you very much for joining me this evening.